Welcome everyone to February's web tips for CPS. We're going to get started here in one more minute. We're going to let a couple more people join the webinar, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, looks like we've got a good crowd here today, so we'll go ahead and get started so we keep track on time and have some time at the end for any open discussions or questions you may have on Winshuttle. So just some quick logistics. We are all on mute so that we can get through our presentation. Towards the end, I'll open up the mic if there's anybody that wants to ask a direct question. Otherwise, we do have our chat window over on the right of the webinar. You can actually type your questions in there, and I'll try to keep track of that and see if anybody asks any questions, and I'll try to answer them as I go. Otherwise, I'll take a look at the questions at the end. So just a quick introduction to myself. My name's Justin Barr. I'll be your master Winshuttle architect here today. We're going to help you out with understanding some tips and tricks on performance and Active Directory and how to use that within Winshuttle form. So I've been using the Winshuttle toolset for well over 7 years. I have a software SharePoint architect background, and love connecting to people on LinkedIn and helping you out in any way in the Winshuttle space. Just some quick CPS introduction. If this is the first time you've been to a web tips, wanted to announce we just got back from our WUG event in Las Vegas, where CPS actually won Partner of the Year. So CPS is focused in the lean space, from lean data management and workflow to lean infrastructure, imaging, and dashboards. And we'll kind of see some of that towards the end with some of our marketing events that we have for the year. Over on our far right is one of our clients, Cooper Tire, where they actually won a golden brushy, that little golden guy here. It's a little statue, kind of hard to get through TSA, but they actually won the golden brushy for master data management in the project that they did with CPS. CPS, as I said, we do have a lot of different divisions. One of the divisions we kind of focused on at WUG and kind of ties into this web tips is around lean dashboards. So we've stood up some really cool dashboards within the Winshuttle space. So if for example you have some data inside of your Winshuttle database and you want to understand, how long does it take to process, who's holding up the process. We've developed some out-of-the-box dashboards that you can plug in and point simply to your Winshuttle database on the workflow side, and we can actually give you all these measurements you kind of see in front of you. So really cool approach. It's bundled, it's ready to go. All you need to do is email sales@clearprocesssolutions.com, and we can get this sent over to you, and we can even demo it for you. From a solution care perspective, we are at WUG and we offer to all of our clients there 5 free hours of solution care if you're not an existing customer, to just try it out. This is an offering that CPS is really passionate about, helping customers just outside of bugs, but really actually architecting and helping you design your forms and workflow. So you can see here some of the Winshuttle maintenance, what's covered by your maintenance, with some ancillary things that we can do with solution care, and we are extending that out to our web tips customers. So if you are interested in the 5 free hours, go ahead and email solutioncare@clearprocesssolutions.com, and we'll go ahead and get you set up and get you started so you can use your 5 free hours for anything from transaction script development to a small 1 hour, 2 hour training session. All right, so why we're here today, what is WEBtips? Everyone may have heard it through our marketing, may have seen us at the WUG event. We talked about WEBtips. So what is WEBtips? It's a fast-paced monthly tips and tricks session. We just want to quickly show and demonstrate what we come across on a day-to-day basis from a Winshuttle workflow and Composer perspective, and also a transaction query and direct. So on the odd number of the months, we have transaction query and direct web tips. On the even number of the months, we have Winshuttle forms and workflow. And today we're going to focus on Composer. And it's it's all around our processes. And one thing that we heard is that we need access to these recordings. These are really nice. So we've actually went ahead and promoted those to our YouTube channel. So if you go to Clear Process or if you go to youtube.com and search for Clear Process Solutions, we have a YouTube channel now that we've actually posted some of our past web tips on there. Also, this is a training for you. We're ideally looking to help you and train you. It happens once a month. So if you do have some things you're struggling with, some concepts, and you want to email us, you can email webtips@clearprocesssolutions.com, and we can actually help you. You can send that into the web tips, and we'll actually maybe put that into our next presentation so that we can help address some of your concerns or your needs, because if you're having issues, there's probably other customers that are having issues as well. And as I said, this one of the big things about CPS is our web tips are based on our current projects, our past projects. So this slide really represents some of the past projects we've done, from invoice processing to internal orders to purchase order requests and raw materials and so forth. So these are all tips and tricks that we're gaining off these projects, so that we can help other customers in the space. So it gets us to our February web tips topics. We're going to focus on two things today, because I know there is a lot of things when you're developing forms and workflows. You're really looking for the performance aspect of how do I make this faster. My counterpart Lance Yoder, that does the web tips on the odd number of the months, him and I wrote a white paper on performance as it relates to Composer, some issues we were having with one of our particular projects. So we turned over that white paper to Winshuttle actually at the WUG event, so we're hoping that that's going to get shared out in the market space. But I wanted to make sure today that you guys got a little glimpse of some of the tips and tricks that were inside of that white paper. The white paper goes a lot into actually how to debug and understand what the performance issues are, what the capabilities of the application. We're not really building the next Amazon.com when we're creating forms and workflows. We're building business processes. We're automating these business processes. We are reducing data entry, and therefore, we're constrained within the confines of our environment. So, there's a good level set in that paper that kind of keeps everybody, you can't define performance at the end. You need to define it at the beginning. So hopefully you all get to read that, but we'll go ahead and cover some of those, and we'll see some live demos today. We're also currently, I've done past web tip sessions on what's known as the SharePoint People Picker, where you can actually start typing someone's name, and then it has a list of drop downs of the people that actually you can select from. Well, this one I wanted to take a little bit different approach. We actually came across a client that was still on SharePoint 2010, in which that capability wasn't there. So we went ahead and created an Active Directory search that goes into a selectable table. So I wanted to show the group today, kind of what that looks like. See if that's something you can use within your form and within your design. All right, with that said, we'll go ahead and get started, and we're going to focus on some performance tips and tricks. So I'll jump out of our PowerPoint here, and we're going to open up. So this is my little virtual environment. I have a site, clearprocesssolutions.com, and I have my tips and tricks SharePoint site. We're going to go over to Composer, and we're going to go ahead and create a new solution for this web tip session. We'll call this performance tips, and we're going to go ahead and tie it to my site. Okay. We'll go ahead and click finish because that's all we need to do in this case. We're just starting with an empty solution. And what I'm going to do when we talk about performance, usually we're trying to do something with a large data set. So when we talk about large data sets, I don't have something that's right out of the box or SharePoint list, but I do have something that I know has a lot of data in it, which is our Winshuttle database that we use for the forms and workflow. So it's actually a Microsoft SQL Server. We'll go ahead and put in our server name. And we're going to select our database called Winshuttle Workflow. And records that get put into this database are everything. If you haven't explored this database before, that's actually what we build our dashboards off of. Everything gets put in here. When you publish a solution, it gets put into a table called WF process def. When you actually start a form in workflow, there's a table called WF process. So all of these tables here kind of represent things that happen inside of Winshuttle. And one of the things that Winshuttle does a lot of is assign people tasks to do. So there's a table we're going to use today called WS activity or assignment, WS or WF assignment. And this specific table, you can see over on the right, these are all the columns. We're just going to leave the default, but we're really only going to use the ID and the status column in our demo today. Before I click OK, I want to really point out this right here. This little checkbox is a huge performance either degradator, where it's just going to make your form perform really slow, or something you can be smart about and uncheck it, depending on your form design. So a lot of this checkbox here has everything to do with how you design your form. And I'm actually going to walk you through the process of what happens based on your form design decisions. So I'm going to leave this checked, and we can see what it says. It's automatically going to retrieve data when the form loads. To give you an idea, there's probably about 16,000 records or more in this database, so we'll see what the performance is going to look like. Once we have our data connection, we're just going to go over to our form, and this is where the form design aspect comes into play. So in this example here, I'm just going to put a simple drop down on our form. Put our columns here, make this a 2-column approach. We have our drop down, and we're going to click on our drop down, and I'm going to click on the range property. So the range property allows us to tie our drop downs to our data connections. So I'm going to go ahead and select data connections, and we're going to select WF assignment. So WF assignment is the table that I said just has all the assignments for Winshuttle. We're just going to show the ID column, and we're going to go ahead and click OK. So at this point, we have our solution set up, and we're going to go ahead and deploy it. In case you haven't upgraded to the latest version of Winshuttle Composer, the funnest or the best thing I like is that you don't have to go navigate to the website when you deploy a solution. You can actually just click this launch form. So that came out in 11.0.3 if you're on an older version. This is going to go ahead and launch my form that I just published. And we're going to sit here and sit here and sit here for a little longer. And we're going to watch our form start to perform slowly. That's not ideal. It took 10 seconds or so for this to actually open up. Let me click on this and we can see why. So if I look at my drop down here, I have all my records that were in my database. This could be anything from your materials to customers, vendors, anything you want to search on. You're putting it to a drop down, and with that drop down, I have 16,000. Or let's see, 164,000. I said 16,000. So 164,000, activities that are in this database. So you can see that the performance wasn't great. It took a little while to load. It's not ideal for for our users, because we're always thinking about our user experience. So how can we make that better? So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and edit this, and I'm going to uncheck automatically load data. So if we're not automatically pulling all those records, then we should think the form will load quicker. So I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to deploy this again. And when we launch this form this time, we'll see as soon as it shows up, bam, it's ready to go. Now I click the drop down and nothing's in there. So the question is why? Why is nothing in this drop down? Well, we told it not to automatically load. So when we tell it to not automatically load, this comes into your form design. So when you're in your form design and you say don't automatically load, then it's not going to load the information, and you're not going to be tied to that drop down. So When we're dealing with large data sets, we don't want to use dropdowns. Dropdowns are going to be your worst case scenario because it has to automatically load that information. There's no other way here to get this in on load. So you'd have to automatically retrieve it, therefore you're going to slow down your form. So how can we make this form better? Well, let's just go back to our form and change our design a little bit. So instead of being a dropdown, we're actually just going to make this a simple text box here. And then we're going to add a new element, one of my favorite elements because of saving for performance. It's called a lookup control. And if we click on this lookup control, you can see that we can actually tie this to our same data connection as we did before. What's also nice about this lookup control is you can display other information. So in a drop-down, you can only display, in the drop-down, you can only display one value. So in this case, we can actually display a couple values. So we'll display ID, status, and user ID. And then we use the set fields here for our lookup control to actually set a value on the form. So we can set one value or we can set many values. In this case, we only have the text box for the ID. So we'll just go ahead and set that. You can set as many fields as you'd like. Anything that's within that data connection and you have a value or a place to put it on your form, you can. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to scroll down towards the bottom here. And there's a really nice feature that's kind of overlooked because it's the last one on here, but it says tie this image to a text box, or to a field. So now you can notice that our SV lookup is right next to our drop down there, or our text box, versus being over on the far right side. So with that said, we've got all of our data connections. I'm still going to leave that data connection to not run on load. And I'll go ahead and click deploy. Okay, so we're going from a slow form to a form that doesn't function, that has no data, to a fast form, and let's see if it functions. We'll take a second here to load and populate this information. And now we have all of our information, and you can see it's in a lookup control, so you can actually see multiple columns. So we have status and user IDs, and a lot of these don't mean a lot to people, but you can think of displaying your material description, and some other information. So it's multiple fields that you can show. And then by clicking on our ID column here, when I click on 2, what it's going to do is populate our text box that we had over here. We switched it. So now with this tip, basically we've gained the performance to have the form load quicker. We have a slight delay when we use the lookup control, but we also are able to display more information. When you're selecting customers, there may be multiple customer names in your database, but what defines those customers uniquely is the street address, city, state, and zip that they're located at. So having a lookup control is just better in that standpoint. Okay, so that's our tip and trick on data connections and being cautious of choosing automatically retrieve when load. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to go ahead and jump over to our next tip and trick here. Let's see here. We're going to go to our same form. And in this form, we're going to add a new group. So this tip and trick comes all around pagination and being able to search your content. So we're going to go ahead and click on text box, a button. We'll change this group to 2 columns so that they're side by side. And then we're going to add one more element at the bottom for a repeating table. And we'll just have it as the same 2 columns we saw before. All right, so we have a text box, and we're going to have a search button over here. We're also going to add a control for our, we're going to have 2 data connection, or add another data connection and a query control. So the first thing we want to do with this query control is we actually want to add a new connection. So instead of going off of assignment table, we're going to go off of the process table. This shows us, the names of all the processes that are currently running in our system. So we'll go against our same server as well. This is just a different way of adding a data connection. You don't always have to do it through the solution tab. You can do it right from the query. So we're going to choose our same database, Winshuttle workflow. We're going to choose a different table this time. It's going to be called WS process def. We'll just go off the def table and we'll hit OK. Next, we actually need to define the query that we're going to select the information from. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste something I already have set up, so I don't have to type it out again. And we'll paste this over into the query window. One thing I want to make sure of is that I have the right XPath. So when you click on your text box here, you can click Show XPath, and it's actually going to give you the XPath for that field. So that's the field we're going to use for search, which is called field 3. So I'm going to go ahead and click over here and make sure that field 3, it happens to be the same field, is in my select statement. So I've select star from WF process, wrong table. Let me add a new data connection. Do one more table here. We'll uncheck the database. CPS test, SPS01, Windows authentication. And hopefully I did not type the database name wrong. And I did. Let's try that one more time. CPS test SPS 01. There we go. We're going to choose our Winshuttle workflow and we're going to choose WF process. We can run the same. Alright, WS process. And we'll hit OK here. Alright. So now we have the WS process tied in our query here. We say where WF process is like, and then it's the field that we're typing in over on the far right. And we're going to run this when a field is, or when it's clicked by this button. So we're going to change it to invoked by rule. We're going to go ahead and click on button 4. We can rename button 4 to search, since this will be our search button. And we're going to go ahead and choose custom. And we're going to add a new rule. So the rule is pretty simple. It's just going to say go ahead and run a query. So when we look at our actions that we can do, one of the actions is execute query. When you click execute query, it asks you which query do you want to run. In this case, we only have one on the form called query 7. So we'll go ahead and click OK here. All right, so we have all this configured. The search is configured. We have Chrome autofilling my text box, which I'm not sure why, but we'll go ahead and deploy, and that won't have any impact on our form. We'll hit launch. All right, so now we have our new form up that we're performing search capabilities within our system. So we could be searching for customer names, we can be searching for materials, vendors, whatever you have in your line of business system that you want to search, you can certainly do that. Now I'm guessing this is going to take a long time to load, because if I remember correctly, I didn't check the don't load. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. One of our first tips that we talked about was for our data connections for WS process def. I forgot to uncheck this, so we'll go ahead and uncheck that. We'll make sure that this one is the same. Okay. And let's go ahead and close. We'll redeploy this. And launch form. Okay, It's amazing how fast it goes when you don't load all 100,000 records. So now we're ready to go. We've got our title over here for our thing. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick search in our database. We're going to search for anything that has the word test in it. And click again. Doesn't look right. Let's just double check my form one more time. Let's go ahead and remove this default value. Here we go. All right. And just to make sure we have the right value here, go ahead and copy that XPath one more time. And if this doesn't work, I always have a backup. So the best thing about demos is to make sure you have a backup. So I do have a backup. Then I'll show you the same setup here in a second. So we'll go ahead and run this one more time. We're selecting from the WS process where it's this. We're invoking it by a rule. And we're going to go ahead and deploy one more time. Okay, we'll click launch form here, see what we get. All right, so we're going to say test and click our button. And it doesn't look like it's bringing back. Let me go ahead and try clearing this out and just try to bring back a large list of results. Nope. All right. Let me go ahead and switch over to my other test here, just so you can see this working. And we'll open up that solution as well. All right, so in this case, we have the same exact setup here. We have a button here, we have our text box, and then we've got our query up top here. I'm going to go ahead and turn off paging so that you can actually see what happens when you don't have paging turned on. So we'll go ahead and hit deploy. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do that same search. We're going to type in test. And when we type in test, we have a bunch of records come back, not too many, 1, 2, 3, about 10 or so. Let's see what happens from a performance perspective if we say, well, bring me back everything that you have in your database. So we're going to see this processing wheel up here. We know it's working. We see the graphic, at least we think it's working. But this is literally going against that process database, and then it's going to go find all the records and then pull all those records back down to the screen. So instead of searching for a finite list like we have here for the test, it's actually going to go against this entire database. And you can see that it's going to continue processing. We'll go ahead and jump back over to this. We have our wait here that's saying it's really working hard. So you can see the performance is really bad. We're starting to see some data show up on the screen, but still the performance is not ideal. You wouldn't want your user just sitting here staring at a processing screen. So there are ways from a performance perspective to get this to work quicker. So the first thing you can do is obviously define how many keys they have to search for. So if you're searching by a vendor ID, for example, if I'm searching for vendor ID, maybe they have to supply the first 3 letters. So you're reducing the bigger list down to a smaller list. So in this case, I said, well, go ahead and allow them to select everything, which there's a lot of information in that database. So you can search, you can restrict your searches that makes them fill out at least 3 characters. The other way to help with your performance is to actually enable pagination on your repeating tables. So 2 big properties is the enable row count here. So that gets you your number of rows per page, and then enable pagination is true. I'm also going to go ahead and enable another cool feature that just came out. We'll scroll down through here. There's validation in Excel, and I've already given presentations, past WEBtips on that. So you can actually use your upload and upload Excel, but there's another one called search. And I'm going to enable search just to show you kind of what the search capabilities of this repeating table are. So I'm going to go ahead and hit deploy this time. All right. And we'll launch our form. Okay, so I'm going to perform the same exact search I did before. So this time I'm not going to fill out any information. I'm just going to go ahead and click search. And what you'll notice instantly is it's not going to take a minute for this to load. It came back extremely quick, and the reason it came back extremely quick is now we have pagination. We only have to display 10 elements on the screen at one time. So that's how we're able to, we have 30 some pages of information, but really what's holding Composer back from a performance standpoint is having to display all 30 pages at 10 records there. So each element has to be displayed. So when we talk about performance, if we say, well, let's enable pagination, we instantly get that performance increase that we wanted to. Now here's this new search thing that I thought was pretty cool, because you have all this data on here, but you really want to search for something. So you can actually start typing in information, and Winshuttle will start filtering that search. So from all those results that just came back, we can actually then further refine it to see which one we want. So in this case, we have 61. New enhancement to the repeating table was to be able to insert rows and above and below. It's very similar to InfoPath if you design forms back in there. So you actually have that capability as well. But by just flipping that switch to true, that gives you the capability to search your repeating table. So we can put 261 and it'll actually refine down the run row. All right, so that's our tip on our second demo that ended up working for us. It's all around pagination. If you're getting slow results, if you're doing searches, you're putting a lot of data back, whether it's coming from SAP, a SQL server, or a CRM system, wherever it's coming. If it's coming to a repeating table that you want to display multiple things for users, make sure you enable pagination. It'll certainly speed up, as you can see there. All right. So our next topic that we are going to talk about is using our Active Directory, and using Active Directory within Composer and being able to search that. So with this one, we already have a form ready to go. There's no, we can just go grab that form, and I'll load it up in Composer as well over here. Okay. So let's go ahead and kind of look through this solution. So very simple solution. It's searching by last name against Active Directory. If you're not familiar with Active Directory, our Active Directory is where you authenticate when you log into your company. When you log into your computer every day and put in your new username and password, that's where you're authenticating against. It's also the thing that makes you change your password every 30 days or 90 days based on your company policy. So we want to use, our what I would call is our core system for knowing usernames and users within your company, because mostly everyone that has to log into your PC or to do something within your organization is going to be in Active Directory. So we're going to search Active Directory by last name. We're going to do the same search button that we saw last time. Up on the top left here, this is our Winshuttle query. So it's going to look a little bit different than our query before. Last time we chose a data connection. We can actually tie it right to a SQL server or SharePoint list. In this case, we're going to use an LDAP connection string. My favorite website is called connectionstrings.com, because it'll actually give you all of this information that you need to know to how to connect to different systems. So, we connect to everything from SQL servers, Oracle databases, to LDAP, and having that website's really nice to just go to that website to look up a connection string. Down here in our bottom, the query looks a little different from an Active Directory. Last name is actually in Active Directory as SN. There's a bunch of websites out there that you can actually look up Active Directory attributes and what they are, but in this case, we're just searching last name, and we're going to return back some information such as their name and their login information. We're going to put that down in this section down here. So one thing that's unique about the selectable table, which is this middle part here, is we're going to take all this data and then we're going to put it into a selectable table. And a selectable table, if you haven't used before, really just shows you a list of results very similar to that lookup control, but instead of popping up, it actually is on the screen. And then when you select something, what it's going to do is it's going to take that and run some custom rules for that. So in our case, we have a selectable table here that we said, when you select a value, let's go ahead and put this value down into this table at the bottom called additional approvers. So the additional approvers, we were using additional approvers to actually assign it to swim lanes. So a lot of people are building forms and they need to be able to add as many people as they want to the form to go through some type of approval process. So if you're thinking of a purchase order request, maybe you want to search for your manager and search for a couple other people that aren't in the core limits of authority defined by your business so that they approve your purchase order request as well as the mandated company policy. You can do that, with this searching Active Directory and showing this information in this table. I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. The big thing about additional approvers is this swim lane right here. It's just another swim lane. We simply just tie it to that repeating table through that workflow participant control that was on the screen. And this is just assigning a task for somebody. One of the key things to note is this transition line here. So if I can bring this up a little bit bigger. So is assignment valid? If you haven't used this before, this transition function is to say, is this swim lane have something assigned to it? Is there a person assigned to that specific swim lane? If it's not assigned to the swim lane, then it'll go down your otherwise path. So you can see here that we say, if the swim lane assignment's valid, then go ahead and assign it to somebody. Otherwise, we're just going to go to the end of the process. So this is how you can assume that not all of your forms are going to have these additional approvers. When you're allowing people to add things to it, they may say, I want the least amount of people to approve this so I can get my PO money as fast as possible. So why would I add 5 more people? So with the is assignment valid, you can't assume that this swim lane here has people in it. Has people that are going to approve it. So that is assignment valid is a nice swim lane or a nice function that will give you that capability to inspect the swim lane and say, did somebody assign it? There's a bunch of other functions here. I urge you to go to the Composer help and look at each one of these. A lot of these decisions here are things that we're building into our designs so that we can meet business needs. One of the biggest, some of the requirements coming recently was, hey, I need to let this sit on somebody's task list to approve for 5 days, but after 5 days, I want this rejected. I don't want it in the system anymore. So the way we were able to accomplish that is out of the box. We didn't have to code anything, and we're just using a function called explicitly approved or auto approved. Explicitly approved means you came to the form, you clicked the button that says approved, and it moved on. Auto approved means that your time was up, your 5 days passed, then it automatically went on. So auto approved, what we do is we say if it's explicitly approved, if someone physically pushed the button, then we're going to go this way. Otherwise, we can go up to our end path. So explicitly approved is there to make sure a physical human interacted with it versus Winshuttle just saying, yeah, go ahead and move on. So with that said, we'll go ahead and deploy this. We'll run a quick Active Directory search here. We'll go ahead and search our Active Directory. Let's just search by last name that starts with B. And I'll click our search button here. And we have 2 results. So this is our selectable table. We have 2 different people. So the functionality we built in for this to add to the table down here is you simply click on Jason, and now he's down in this table as an additional approver. Then you click on Justin, and then he appears down here as well. If you want to go ahead and search for a new person, do OR, and you can go ahead and click search, and now we have Mark down here as well. So now we're able to build our additional approvers. We can certainly make all of this stuff read-only. We can display one column, multiple columns, and then you can also come down here and delete columns by right-clicking and saying, are you sure you want to delete? Sure. And now we can limit our additional approvers. If you haven't seen Active Directory before, we'll go ahead real quick here and open up Active Directory, because this is one thing I do like about searching directly against Active Directory. I'm going to go ahead and just copy one of these users here, and we'll do a call out to Elisa, who I think is on the call today. She was the one that helped put this Active Directory search together. So we'll put Elisa Vadla. We'll put Elisa.Vadla. Click next. We'll put in a quick password for her. We'll hit next. Alright, so now we have Elisa in our Active Directory here. I'm just going to go back to the form and type in V and hit search. And we have Elisa showing up in our results. So it's really nice to be able to change your Active Directory, be able to instantly search it, get those results as soon as the user's there. SharePoint does sync Active Directory down to your local SharePoint web application, but it does run on a timer. It can be delayed. So this is kind of instant gratification, whereas SharePoint may be an hour or so behind at the worst. Okay. So we'll jump back over to our slides. That's our last demo on Active Directory and adding people to to a repeating table. And we'll jump back to our slide here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and look at our question area now in our chat window to see if there are any questions. If you want to raise your hand, certainly feel free to do that. So we'll leave that, look at the questions here. Nothing in the questions. Over to the chat window, nothing over there. So if there's anybody that has any questions or any tips that you'd like, we have a couple minutes left here for this month's web tips if there's something you want to look at. So keep an eye on the window. Looks like we're good there, so no questions. Let's go ahead and go to our next slide. I'll keep an eye out for it. So over in our events for CPS, I want to make sure that everyone's aware what CPS is doing in the market space. We have our monthly web tips. You can see the next one is coming up on March 17th. This web tips is all going to be on Desktop Studio. So anybody that's running Transaction Query Direct, Mr. Lance Yoder will be presenting that. He'll be doing something very similar to what you saw today, just showing some tips and tricks from past clients. We have coming up March 8th a webinar for Winshuttle customers and also other customers that are looking to mirror their production environment. This is under CPS's Lean Infrastructure Division. It no longer takes days, months to get a mirror production environment restored. We can do it in a couple minutes, and we have a really good webinar that we demonstrate some of this. We actually have on our YouTube channel a 45-minute demonstration on how this kind of applied to the Winshuttle market space. I was able to do something similar with Active Directory and mirror my production environment without actually affecting my production environment. So if you didn't get a chance to register for that event, it is on our YouTube channel, and we do have one coming up on March 8th. On March 9th, we're going to be in Denver, Colorado, holding one of our Lean Utopia process sessions. So if you're from the area, this is a great event to come and do some stories. Lunch is provided. Just talk about Winshuttle, talk about some of the tips and tricks, and talk about things that you're struggling with in your space. And lastly, on April 12th, We do have our first event of this year, first quarter, is the Winshuttle Hero User Group. They deem it Hug instead of WUG. So we were at WUG, which was Winshuttle's big event for all their customers, but they deem these events Hug. They're actually going to be hosted here in Cleveland for this event. It's for Moen is going to be our host, and then we are going to have an after party for the clients that come. That will just interact with CPS and talk about the event and some of the successes you're having with the tool. So I'll take one more glance here at the chat window or our questions. It looks like we're clear. So I want to thank everyone for attending today. If you have any questions or any thoughts around WEBtips, please email webtips@clearprocesssolutions.com. Thank you.